Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the new Marvel Legends Korg Build-A-Figure wave, Ravager Thor, from the movie Thor: Love and Thunder. So whereas the first Thor in this wave was a very dressed to the nines version of the character, this is a very dressed down version of the character. So he's dressed pretty much like he's a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is why they call him Ravager Thor, right? Because the Guardians and the Ravagers kind of work hand in hand these days, and they kind of share a certain style with one another. So this seems to be how Thor is going to appear for, probably most of the first half of the movie at least, before he finally, really takes up arms again and becomes the God of Thunder that we all know and love. And you can also see that this is, post getting back into shape, because last time we left Thor, he was a rather heavy-set fellow. And we did see in the trailer a bit of a training montage showing us, kind of how he got back into his more familiar, big, muscular physique. So if you haven't seen the trailer, that's why he looks the way he does now. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know this goes. We're going to take a look at Thor's packaging, then we'll open it up. We'll see Thor himself, we'll get a quick look at his Build-A-Figure piece, and then we'll check out all of his posability, all of his accessories. Naturally, I'll be doing plenty of group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Thor comes in your standard Marvel Legends packaging. You get your Korg call out up here. You get Ravager Thor's name down here, and then the Thor Love and Thunder logo. Right here you get the main Thor figure, having a very imposing presence and just looking really, really cool with his outfit. Though he also kind of looks like that uncle that just never really let go of rock and roll. Here you can see the axe Stormbreaker, which is the exact same mold that comes with the other Thor figure in this wave, which would make sense, right? The weapon would look the same in the same movie, unless it went through some sort of upgrade or got damaged. Down here you can see a little bit of Korg's arm. Then we turn this, get some good artwork of Thor right here. Kind of looks like the brawny guy. Or Paul Bunyan or something, like he's about to cut down a tree. Kind of funny looking. But they do really capture Chris Hemsworth's look right there. Got his whole visage down. You can see a little bit of the axe. And let's see, is it the same picture? Oh, it's a different picture on the back, so that's good. This is him actually about to swing the axe, so it's a little more dynamic. You see his vest kind of flying around. Over here we get his name and some flavor text that says, Thor wields the mighty Stormbringer against a terrifying new foe. And we all know who that is. Now down here, we get a render of Korg, fully assembled, and then we get our cross-cells. So we have the first Thor, who's done up in some, as of yet, unknown armor, but I imagine that's going to be like the form he takes by the end of the movie. We have Mighty Thor, formerly known as Jane Foster. Gore the God Butcher, who is probably this terrifying new foe they are referring to. King Valkyrie, this toy, Star-Lord, and then Groot. So as I've pointed out before, this entire wave is dedicated to the new Love and Thunder movie, which is a bit of a rarity. Normally they mix in some other stuff for these. So yeah, that's the packaging. It's got some great artwork on it. Does a good job of showing off the figure inside for as long as that lasts, because I don't know if you guys know this, they're getting rid of the windows in the packaging and it's all going to be like blind box. So I'm sure nothing could go wrong there. Definitely not going to be some stolen bath pieces or missing heads or just damaged product that you won't know about till you get it open. It's going to be real fun. Now we can see our figure out of the packaging. Let's go ahead and look at his Build-A-Figure piece. So this is Korg's left arm, and it's very heavily detailed. Lots of rocky surfaces here. It's got your universal joint for the shoulder. It's got, is it double bend? It is. It is a double bend elbow. Look at that. That's cool. Obviously got a bicep swivel, and then a universal wrist. This little four-fingered rocky hand. He's got this nice bracer on his forearm, which can probably rotate freely. Yeah, it can move around on its own. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like under or to the side. I'll figure that out though. So yeah, nice little piece. Very articulated. I dig it. And then we see Thor himself. And he's a real tall dude. I'm gonna have to compare him to some other like adult male Legends figures, see if he's especially tall. He feels tall. So yeah, got a real lumberjack vibe going on here. We can see the head is incredibly well sculpted. Looks a lot like the actor. He's got what appears to be halfway braided hair, and then a lot of it's just kind of flowing loosely. Has a double ball jointed head, universal shoulders, bicep swivel, got double bent elbows, universal wrists. Really nice little details. You can look on his arms, on the biceps, on the forearms, and you actually see sculpted veins, just to indicate that he has indeed been working out quite a bit. Alright, his torso has a nice ab crunch to it. His undershirt here has this really nice texturing. It's got that line texturing that these... I don't want to use the name I used to use for him, because I'm sure that's not, like, politically correct, but a tank top, let's call it that. Yeah, it's got that texturing that I'm used to. His vest is all soft rubber. Now, I believe you could take it off. It's not attached to him. You'd have to pop off probably his head, and you would have to take his arms off, or at least maybe one arm. That's not something I want to do, because the arms don't come off nearly as easily as the head, and I don't want to break anything. But it should be pretty easy to take this off. And he's also got a full waist swivel, universal hips that actually go out really, really far. Go back and forth. Got thigh swivel, double bend knees. He's got ankle rock and rotation. So very posable. He's quite stable too, which is good. And he looks really great. I like the way everything came out on him. Honestly, you know, he reminds me of a WWE wrestler. Like, wrong toy line, I know, but he's definitely got that vibe going. Alright, then we see Stormbreaker. And, you know, you got the handle made of wood from Groot. And then the blade right here is like two-toned. It's mostly done up in this just kind of somewhat shiny gray, and then it has like a dark, shinier gray paint on certain edges, certain sides of it, so very cool. And then you can just put it in one of his hands. I'll go ahead and put it in his right hand, because I'm pretty sure Thor's right-handed. I could be wrong. Handle's a little soft there, or the haft. It's really the more appropriate term. Alright, so you could have him wield it in one hand. You could have him put in two hands, too, like a two-handed stance. Now, something I noticed, if you look on the back of this hand, there's some discoloration there. And also on the bottom of this hand. So that's really annoying. I'm sure it's just kind of like a one-off issue, but still, that stinks. I don't want weird marks and stuff on my figures. Now, that's one of those things you're not going to be able to check for once they start getting rid of windows in the packaging. You're just going to have to deal with it or go through the trouble of trying to exchange it, and you know, God forbid you're dealing with like a limited run or exclusive item, you may just not be able to and just be stuck with whatever issue your toy has, so it's going to be very frustrating. Okay, and now we get a comparison with the other Thor released in this wave, who's just called Thor, no prefix or anything. And this represents Thor in his fully armored form that we've seen in trailers for the movie now. In fact, the new trailer just dropped, I think, like last night, that shows you a bit more of Thor and Jane's interaction, so I would check that out if you're interested. We even finally get to see him with his helmet on, though. It looks a little out of place. I think the helmet is CGI, which I don't know why. Looks pretty bad, but I don't know. So you can see that these two figures, they don't have any sculpting in common aside from their axe. And speaking of the axe, one thing that I've noticed is that the Ravager Thor, he has more paint apps on his Stormbreaker than the armored one. The armored one doesn't have any of that like dark shading or anything on the blade portion. I don't know why that is. It could be the simple answer, which is just a budget thing. The armored Thor is a much more intricate figure and has a lot more paint apps, so that could be the reasoning for it. They're just skimping on it because of budget. Or maybe it's just meant to look, you know, cleaner, shinier, a little less muted. I'm not really sure. But I will say, regardless of the reason, I think the coloration on each character's axe works better for each individual character, right? You get the Thor clad in golden shining armor with his shining axe, and then you get the more down-to-earth, you know, spacefaring Ravager Thor, who has an axe that just really reflects his color palette a bit more. So, I don't know. Unless Stormbreaker actually changes color in the movie, I really doubt it's anything more than cost-cutting. But at least aesthetically, they do work for their individual figures. I was also wondering how these two compared in height, because one thing I noticed while reviewing the first Thor is that he was significantly taller than the other figures around him. And I was wondering if that was just something that was specific to this figure or not, but when you see them side by side, they're more or less the same height. Like, the tiny bit of height difference that this guy gets over this one can just be attributed to the fact that he has a helmet on. I mean, it's a very small difference. Like, about as much as, a metal helmet would make up. So, I think, as far as scale is concerned, I think they pretty much nailed it. I guess I just kind of underestimated just how tall Thor is actually supposed to be. Now, one thing I want to do, because I've seen a lot of photographers and stuff do this, a lot of collectors, so I definitely want to show it off for you guys, is swap the Ravager head onto the armored body, because a lot of people really don't like the helmeted face, and I gotta be honest, I'm not really super crazy about it either. I think the execution is not really great. So let me go ahead and try to pull his head off without damaging anything. There we go. And let's get Ravager Thor's head off here. Alright, so we got that. So if you want to have Thor in his armor without the, kind of goofy, awkward helmet, you can do that. And I gotta say, it looks really good. Look at that. I can get Zach's to position well. Look at that. I think, to me, this is my favorite combination right here. Like, this looks like Thor. Like, the Ravager one is really cool, don't get me wrong. He's got a real 80s rock and roll vibe to him, which fits the theme of the movie. But this right here, I think this is where it's at. This, to me, is probably like the ultimate interpretation of Thor. In fact, I've seen some people, they actually bought an extra Ravager Thor specifically just to cannibalize the head and use it for this figure. And I can't say I blame them. Honestly, if I was like swimming in money and didn't care about buying an extra, I'd totally do the same thing, because I think this right here is the best combination. It looks fantastic. Plus, if you have the Ravager Thor, you can swap in his axe for this one if you want to have, the more shaded look to it. So yeah, really just great to have that option, and the head looks perfectly natural on this body. In fact, I think it looks more natural than this, which it's just, there's something off about it. I think they made the helmet like a little too big and kind of cartoony looking. I mean, I like the flowing hair and all, that's pretty cool, but it's also less realistic looking. Almost has kind of an anime quality to it. And I think that's what's off about the Armored Thor figures. The head just seems out of place, both on screen and on the toy. Like, it seems like a cartoon head on a live-action body, so yeah, kind of weird. So yeah, I like the way this looks. Of course, it's your toy, it's up to you how you display things. But I will say that having these two does allow for some really cool combinations. And this completes our look at Ravager Thor. I find this to be a very, very interesting take on a Thor figure. It's the first time we've really gotten a figure of him when he's just kind of dressed down. He's not all armored up and superhero looking. He's just dressed as a guy, right? A guy who's, just kind of out there living his life, almost kind of like having a midlife crisis, right? He's kind of dressing like a a dad who grew up in the 80s and now he's just trying to, find himself, I suppose. But I think it's a really great aesthetic for him. It really fits with the theme of the movie, but it also helps him really fit in with the Guardians of the Galaxy and their whole getup, the Ravagers, all that. And it's just kind of cool seeing Thor in just normal clothing, just kind of being himself, just out there kind of exploring the galaxy, figuring everything out after the events of, Infinity War, Endgame, all that. So I think it's a really nice take on him, and it looks good too. It doesn't feel like a boring, like, oh, it's Thor with like regular clothes. I mean, it's so well done. The detailing on the jeans, right? Really got that denim texture to it. The boots with the straps all over. And I mean, the jacket, the tank top, it's got the ridges on it. It looks fantastic. And of course, Stormbreaker looks good. I don't know if like this is the same Stormbreaker piece that was used on like Endgame Thor and I don't know, Infinity War maybe. I forget if he included it. It would make sense for it to be, but I don't know if there is that consistency there since I don't own those toys. I don't know why he keeps bouncing back and forth. Kind of weird. So yeah, I very much like this figure, and if you want something that's just kind of a really nice, different take on Thor, or you just want this toy so you can give the Armored Thor a better head, I think there's definitely something here for most people. Of course, that's just how I feel about this toy, so now I want to know what you all think of it. Do you see yourself picking up this version of Thor? Does this appeal to you, having a Thor that's not, in the traditional like superhero trappings? Or does this really not do it for you? You just don't like, getting toys of dudes and like jeans and wife beaters? Or, I don't know, anything in between? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. And thank you for joining me for this look at the new Marvel Legends Ravager Thor. And And with all that said, I will see you next time.